Okay, I'm going to get started by welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Nice to see all of you guys here. Welcome. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today is our group learning program where each Sunday and Wednesday I get together with students, helping them to understand the path to enlightenment. Each Sunday, what I do is I go chapter by chapter in this book, helping students to be able to understand a foundation in the teachings that lead to enlightenment. And then on Wednesdays, I guide students in meditation and then just open up to whatever questions you guys might have. I will share a little bit of a taste of the teachings of the Buddha after meditation, so you'll understand a little bit about his teachings, and then we'll just have an open discussion where you guys can ask any and all questions that you like. So welcome to you guys here. Welcome to anyone who's joining online as well. This individual who we refer to as the Buddha figured out over 2,500 years ago how to be able to get to enlightenment. What enlightenment is where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any discontent feelings. You will have eliminated the causes and conditions that are producing things like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of that can be eliminated from the mind. Oftentimes people think that those feelings are being caused by something external, but what the Buddha figured out is that it's what's going on in your own mind that's causing these feelings, and this is why you can uproot it and eliminate it and get to the point where the mind's experiencing complete peace and joy. So the Buddha taught you how to train your mind. There aren't any rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or prayer as part of the teachings of the Buddha. If you're seeing those kinds of things associated with his teachings, he never taught any of those types of things. He always taught to be able to train your mind. He doesn't have rules and commandments. It's not about a bunch of beliefs. It's about doing this inner work of growth and development, becoming a better and better human being. So meditation is part of this training, but you would need much more than just meditation to be able to get to enlightenment. Oftentimes people think that the Buddha sat under a tree, he meditated, and then instantly got to enlightenment. And this actually isn't true. It's a big myth. So you're going to need meditation to be able to get to enlightenment, but there's other things besides meditation that you would need. So that's why afterwards I'll just share a little bit of the taste of the teachings with the Buddha with you guys, but mainly just opening up to whatever questions you guys might have. If you'd like to join for meditation, the way that I start this is with some chanting to be able to ease the mind into meditation. It actually helps you to get more benefit out of the meditation itself if you choose to chant along. I have the chants that I do on a laminated sheet over there on the cabinet. You're welcome to help yourself and get a laminated sheet, and you're actually able to chant along during the chanting if you like. Sure, help yourself. Go ahead. For those of you guys online, you'll find this chanting sheet on our website at buddhadailywisdom.com. You can click on free books and then just scroll down about 2/3 of the way down the page and you'll see this chanting sheet. So I'm going to be doing this chanting as a way to ease into the meditation. And it's important to understand that during the lifetime of the Buddha, he used chanting as a way to help his students to remember the teachings. Every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. So he used chanting as a learning tool, as a learning device. So you can see from the origins of chanting that this isn't a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer, or anything like that. There's none of those kinds of things in the teachings of the Buddha. He used this purely as a learning tool, as a learning device, because everything he taught was oral and they needed a way to commit the teachings to memory. So they recited his teachings orally. Where today we have books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, things like this. They didn't have that 2,500 years ago. So they used the recitation of the teachings in order to commit them to the memory. So this isn't a prayer or worship or anything like that. In fact, if you read the English translations, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha even created these chants by himself, because he wouldn't have walked around and said, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me. This would be ego or arrogance if somebody did this. And by the time you get to enlightenment, you don't have that in your mind anymore. So the Buddha wouldn't have created chants in order for his students to be able to chant them to him out of respect and appreciation. But if you learn from a teacher how to move from anger, sadness, frustration, and all these other feelings to this peaceful and joyful mental state that's enlightenment, and this teacher didn't want anything or expect anything from you, they were just helping you out of the kindness of their heart, you'd probably have a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for that person too. So that's why I think they came from his students, either during his life or after his death. So I'm going to use these as I ease into meditation. You're welcome to chant along if you like. Once we're in the meditation, I'm going to be providing some guidance where I'm essentially going to be teaching you and instructing you how to meditate while we're actually meditating together. But then there's going to be a period of time of quietness where we're all meditating. Everyone here at the temple and anyone joining online will just all be meditating at the same time. Now, during this period of time of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. You might hear a car go by, a dog barking, a bird chirping, someone here might cough or sneeze. This is all normal. If you're in meditation with a craving for permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you will cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated. That's what's causing the mind to experience these feelings, is it's craving permanence while it lives in an impermanent world. So you need to train your mind to understand impermanence, that the world around you is constantly changing. So if someone's in meditation understanding that the world is impermanent, when you hear a sound, you know that that sound's going to arise, it's going to change, and then it's going to fade away. And this is the way that the world works. And you can be at ease understanding that, being completely peaceful and joyful, avoiding any kind of annoyment or frustration. That's what you would like to be able to do to train your mind, is train it to let go and no longer crave permanence. After that period of time of quietness, then we're going to come out of that with some more chanting. And that's where we'll start today's class. Again, I'll just share a little bit of the teachings with you and then just mainly open up to whatever questions you guys have. In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times because it's kind of like having a tool belt and using whatever tool is working best in that particular situation. So in various classes, courses, and retreats, I teach all these different positions because you're going to need them as part of your tool belt as you make your way towards enlightenment. But what I'm going to do today is just share a little bit of suggestions with you on the seated position, because that's usually how people are learning. But just keep in mind, well, what I'm sharing with you are just suggestions or recommendations, because there's not just one way to sit. Because if there was one way to sit, that would be permanence, and we don't live in that world. Everybody's body is a little bit different, and you're going to find different things to be comfortable. So you can use something that I'm sharing with you, or you can come up with something on your own. It really is up to you. What's important is that the body's comfortable, that it's not painful and it's not luxurious, but instead it's in the middle where it's comfortable. So you could be sitting on the floor or in a chair. Maybe if you're at home, you're on a bench or a sofa or in a wheelchair, you can sit however you like. So if you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This will kind of help soften your seat a bit. And if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you might just choose to do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, this can impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets your hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable, you could use it. But again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. There's other options here as well. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. The same thing's true for anybody who's in a chair or on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can also sit however you like. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair here with my legs crossed. So this is an option for you as well. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. In terms of your upper body, it's helpful if this is erect, with the sternum up and the shoulders back. It'll help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Because what meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you'd like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you're real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be erect with the sternum up and the shoulders back, because not only will it keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, but it'll make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to do some chanting to ease into the meditation. You guys are welcome to join in, and then I'll come back in with some guidance to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Emakewa Potang Makewanhang Aphiwate Ami วากขาโตเอมาเควตาตัมโมดามังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนเอมหะเควโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมรัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมรัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมรัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสเอมะเกวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. หังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาโพตังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนัมสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมโมโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสรังโอโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, good morning to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. This is called Breathing Mindfulness Meditation. This is a primary form of training in addition to other things that the Buddha used in order to move his mind to enlightenment. I'm going to help you guys to understand what this is and why it's so important for your journey to enlightenment and how it fits into the overall teachings of the Buddha. At a certain point, I'm going to stop and I'm just going to open up to whatever questions you guys have, whether it's about something that I've shared or something that you guys are seeing within your own life or any kind of personal challenges you might be interested to talk about. When we get to the point where it's time for questions, we have microphones in the middle of the room in a white bowl, and there's also some up here as well. If you could just get a microphone, that'll be really helpful because then the people online will be able to hear you. If you get a microphone and you take it back to your seat, you press the gray button, you'll see the light comes on, and then you can just hold it up to your chin and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple and they'll hear you online. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you can keep these microphones with you because you might have more than one question or someone around you might have a question and you can just share it with them. And if you're not using it, if you could turn it off, that'll be helpful so we don't get feedback through the speakers. And then anybody who's online, if you guys would like to ask questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section. I'll see that. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any and all questions that you like. So again, this is called Breathing Mindfulness Meditation. The goal of this meditation is to train your mind to be able to let go. Sometimes people think, based on the guidance in the meditation, that the goal is to eliminate your thoughts. And if they had thoughts during meditation, they might think, oh, I'm so bad at meditation. This isn't actually true. Even enlightened beings have thoughts during their meditation. The difference is in the unenlightened state, you'll tend to have a bombardment of thoughts. It'll be like thought. You might have had that today. Or you might have had a thought, and you followed it, you played with it, you indulged in it, you were like 2 or 3 minutes down the road and you're like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm meditating. And you brought your mind back, right? So this is what usually happens in the unenlightened state. In the enlightened mental state, you'll still have thoughts during meditation, but the difference is that you'll notice it and you'll cut it off and let it go. So right away, you'll notice the thought and you'll cut it off and let it go. And then in between your thoughts, there'll be calmness and stillness in between your thoughts. So you'll have thoughts during meditation, but what this meditation is doing is training your mind to let go. Because what's causing your mind to experience anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, all of these feelings is your mind is holding on. The mind is craving permanence. Oftentimes people think it's the outside world that's causing these feelings, but it's actually what's going on within your own mind. This is why you can eliminate these feelings, because the mind itself is actually what's producing them. If it was other people that was causing these feelings, you'd never actually be able to eliminate them. So in the unenlightened state, what the Buddha discovered is that the mind is craving permanence. It's holding on and craving for things to be permanent. And when the mind gets what it wants and what it expects, it experiences pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, or euphoria. But when the mind doesn't get what it wants, it experiences painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. So for example, if you wake up in the morning and you see it's sunny outside and you get really happy and excited, wow, it's sunny outside, I can't wait to go outside, it's going to be so fun, yay! This is what we call conditioned happiness, that based on a condition, your mind is experiencing happiness, that the sun is present, so therefore the mind's getting what it wants, so it's happy and excited. But the problem with this is if you go take a shower and you come out and you're planning to go outside and it's raining, now you'll be frustrated, now you'll be angry. The only thing that's happened here is change. That's all that's happened, is it went from sun to rain. But if your mind craves permanence, where you're expecting and longing, yearning, and wanting that sun to be permanent, when it changes from sun to rain, you'll cause your own mind to be frustrated or annoyed. Or for example, if you get really happy when your bank account balance is up here, you might be really happy and excited about that, but that's not permanent. It's going to come down here. And then when it comes down, you'll be annoyed or frustrated. So people think it's the outside world that's causing these feelings, but you can see there's no other person even involved in this kinds of situations that I just described, that it goes from sun to rain. There's no other person involved. It's just your own mind. Or if it goes from the bank account balance from here to here, there's no other person involved. It's just change. So one of the ways to say this is the mind craves permanence. Another way to say it is that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. When things are changing in your life, those are the times where you've struggled the most. You've had the most challenges. You can look at your life, because the teachings of the Buddha aren't based in belief. You shouldn't believe what it is that I'm sharing with you today. Don't believe what I write in books, and don't believe what other people say too. You need to independently verify this for yourself. So look at your life. Look at when things were changing. Those were the most difficult times in your life. That's when you struggled the most. When your jobs were changing, when your living location was changing, when your relationships were changing. Whenever you were experiencing change in your life, that's when you were struggling the most. That stress, the anxiety, the frustration, the agitation, that's the mind struggling and having difficulties to live in a world that it doesn't understand. That the mind in the unenlightened state lacks wisdom to understand that the world is constantly changing. Instead, the mind holds on and it craves permanence. You can see this if you've ever been in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend. Maybe when you guys first got together, you were really happy and really excited. This person was showing you affection. They were calling you and checking in on you, sending you text messages, inviting you to dinner and the movies. Maybe you were going to the park. You were having great walks and conversations. Maybe you were even having intimate contact at some point, and you're getting all these pleasant feelings. But as time went on, the relationship deteriorated and it fell apart. And then you guys broke up. When you guys broke up, you might have been angry or frustrated. You might have been lonely or bored or missing this person. And you might think that that's your love that's causing that. but it's not love. Love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. What was causing those emotions and feelings is that the mind was holding on. It was craving permanence. As long as it was getting what it wanted, which was this person in your life, you were experiencing happiness, excitement, a certain amount of comfort. But then when they left and your mind had to let go, your mind didn't want to let go. Your mind was holding on and craving for this person to be in your life permanently. And the mind can only be happy when it gets what it wants in the unenlightened state. So if the mind's getting what it wants, which is this person in your life, you're so happy. But if the mind's not getting what it wants, then the mind experiences anger, sadness, frustration, and these other discontent feelings. You can see this if you've had someone close to you that has died or passed away, like maybe grandma or grandpa, mom or dad, brothers or sisters. If you had those people pass away and you were grieving and sorrowful, this is just because the mind's holding on. It's craving permanence. As long as grandma and grandpa are alive, the mind's getting what it wants, and it's happy about that. But then when the mind experiences this impermanence, which it doesn't like, because remember, one way to say this is that the mind craves permanence. Another way to say it is that the mind doesn't like impermanence. It doesn't like change. So when grandma and grandpa died, the mind was experiencing this impermanence, this change, and it didn't like it. You can see it if you've been to a wedding. Maybe somebody was getting married and people were crying and they were grieving. Well, it's not love that's causing that, because here goes somebody off into the world with somebody else. This is wonderful. They're starting a new life. They have a new relationship. But no, mom and dad, brothers and sisters, grandma and grandpa, their mind's holding on. It's like, that's my brother, that's my sister, right? The mind doesn't want to let go. It's really challenging. Or if you can think back to when you got dropped off at school, when you're maybe getting dropped off at university, or if you remember back when you got dropped off at really young in life, your parents or you might have been crying. Remember, love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. It's not love that's causing the grief, because here goes your kid off to school. This is wonderful. They're getting an education, right? But no, mom and dad are crying and the baby's crying, the child's crying, because the mind's holding on. I'll give you one more example, and then I'll explain to you how this meditation is helping you. Because oftentimes with relationships, people have a hard time seeing this. Because remember, you've got to independently verify this for yourself. Think if you got a brand new car. Maybe you've been saving for this car for like 10 years. You've been putting money under the mattress of your bed. You've been dreaming about this car. You just can't wait to get this car. And after about 10 years, you've saved up all this money, and you go down to the dealership, and now you give them the money. They give you the keys, and you drive off the parking lot with a big smile on your face. And you just can't believe you got this brand new car that you've been dreaming about for 10 years. And you're driving down the street, and your friends are like, wow, look at her. She's so successful. Wow, look at him. He's so successful. And you're just so proud driving your car. And then you park your car at the store, and you go inside, and you come outside, and there's a scratch on your car. Oh my gosh, you might be crushed, right? If you're having frustration or anger in this situation, it's not the scratch, and it's not the person who scratched your car. What's causing it is the mind is craving permanence. The mind wants this car to look permanently beautiful. We're not talking about what's wise or unwise here, because when we walk through a parking lot, of course, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car. But the fact is that this car is going to deteriorate. It's only a matter of time. It's impermanent. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. If your mind craves permanence, when you experience impermanence, which is the scratch, your mind's not going to like that, and you're going to get frustrated or angry. So what this meditation is doing is training your mind to let go, so that you're not craving permanence. But before we talk about that, just take a moment to verify what it is that I'm sharing with you. Because like I said, the teachings of the Buddha aren't based in belief. You need to learn, examine, and investigate his teachings. You need to reflect on them to verify if they're true or they're false. And then you need to practice them, integrating them into your life and making wiser and wiser decisions. This is what's going to lead to your enlightenment. So take a recent time when you've been angry or sad or frustrated. It might have been this morning or yesterday or last week. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes, because oftentimes what the mind likes to do is it likes to blame these feelings on other people. You might have been blaming what you were experiencing on other people. This is very common. But instead, look at it with these fresh eyes. What was it that you wanted? What did you expect? What were you longing, yearning for? And if you would have gotten it, you would have been happy. But because the mind didn't get what it wanted or what it expected, it experienced anger, sadness, or frustration. If you can see this, you can have a real breakthrough. Because, like I mentioned, oftentimes people think it's others that are causing these feelings. And what you might have been doing in your life so far is you might be pushing people away, or you might be pushing a situation away, where you've pushed away friends or family. This is what the mind typically does when it experiences anger and frustration. It thinks somebody else is actually causing it, so you'll tend to push those people away out of your life. Or the second thing you'll do is you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile to people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions, feeling justified in your anger, thinking that this person caused it. But now it's like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear them into doing things your way. Or the third thing you'll do is you'll tend to put your expectations on people, trying to pressure them into doing things your way. This is the mind trying to get its cravings fulfilled. It's trying to create this perfect little bubble where everybody does things your way. And if someone doesn't do things your way, you'll push them away. You'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile to them to try to convince them to do things your way out of fear, or you'll put pressure on them trying to convince them to do it your way. And people might be doing this to you too, where they're pushing you away. They're being bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, or they're putting expectations on you. But there's this better way of life that the Buddha taught that you can train your mind to not do that, where you can live in harmony with everybody. But what the mind does is it craves for everybody to do things a certain way. There's this craving for permanence that the mind wants. And you like people who do things your way, but when they don't do things your way, you'll dislike them. And what the Buddha is helping you to be able to see is everybody does things differently. That's normal. That's impermanence. Because there's only one person in the world who does things your way 100% of the time. Do you know who this person is? Yourself, right? So if you can only love people who do things your way, there's only one person in the world that you can actually love. And you might actually have trouble doing that sometimes too, right? Loving yourself. So the Buddha is helping you to be able to see this so that you can cultivate the wisdom to see what the true problem is and what the true cause is. Because as long as you go around the world thinking other people are causing your feelings and emotions, you'll never actually fix it. You'll just be angry and frustrated the rest of your life. So this meditation, when you're focused on the breath and the mind moves off the breath and you cut that off and let it go and come back to the breath, what you're doing is training your mind to let go. Because that's what the unenlightened mind doesn't know how to do. That's why after you broke up with that boyfriend or girlfriend, you were angry and frustrated. You were lonely and bored and missing this person because you were holding on. But at some point, your mind let go. You were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And you let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. Or you were like, you know what? If she wants to move to another part of the world, so be it. And you let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came in. But your mind doesn't know how to let go in the unenlightened state. So this is just one technique, this meditation of breathing mindfulness meditation, among other techniques that the Buddha shares with you of how to uproot the causes and conditions that are producing these feelings, training your mind to let go. So in meditation, anything and everything that comes up, you would like to train your mind to let go, let go, let go. No matter what the thought is, whether it's wholesome or unwholesome, you train your mind to let go. You're building this internal mechanism to be able to let go. Because like in daily life, let's just say you're checking in at the airport and you think that you're leaving in about 1 hour, right? And you're checking in your bags and you get to the front of the line and the person says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, sir. I'm sorry, ma'am. You can't check in yet. Your flight's not leaving for another 3 hours." And you thought your flight was leaving in like an hour, and you're noticing this anger and frustration coming up. It's not the airline company that's causing that. That's the mind craving permanence. I want every airline company, I want every airplane to take off on time. That's the way the mind thinks. Well, everyone else's plane can be late. You guys don't mind that, right? But it's my airplanes need to take off on time, right? And now if your plane takes off on time, you're happy. But if it doesn't take off on time, the mind's angry or frustrated. It's craving permanence. But the thing is that there's going to be weather issues. There's going to be maintenance issues. There's going to be crew issues. It's only a matter of time. But if you travel enough, that you're going to experience some impermanence. But if you're craving to get to Thailand and you just can't wait to eat that mango and sticky rice, or those massages, oh my gosh, have you had a massage? Or maybe the elephants, I'm going to play with elephants. And now you're delayed by 3 hours. The mind's longing, yearning, and your frustration's coming up. Well, if you've been building your meditation practice where you're building this internal mechanism to cut off and let go, when you're standing there at the counter and you notice the anger coming up, you can cut it off and let it go. Right? But if you haven't been training your mind to do this, you're not going to be able to. If you cut it off and let it go enough over the course of multiple months and years, eventually you'll get to the point where anger never arises. That's what an enlightened being is experiencing, where anger and frustration and jealousy and guilt and shame and loneliness and boredom and all these feelings, they never arise because the causes and conditions that produce them have been eliminated. But you go through this training period where you need to watch over your mind on a day-to-day basis, that whenever you notice the anger and frustration arising, you cut it off and let it go. You're not suppressing your feelings or repressing your feelings. You're actually cutting it off and letting it go before it becomes a feeling. Because prior to it becoming a feeling, there's going to be a bodily sensation that you may or may not be aware of. There's going to be tingling in the body, tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull. This is the early warning system alerting you that this mind is about to get angry. It's about to get frustrated. And you've got a few seconds there that you can cut off and let go. So this meditation is helping you to cut off and let go as you notice any discontent feelings coming up. So in meditation, you cut off anything and everything. But in day-to-day life, you only cut off the unwholesome thoughts. If you have the thought during day-to-day life that you would like to take your mom out to dinner, out to breakfast, and you'd like to give her a call and check in on her, no need to cut that off in day-to-day life. If it comes up in meditation, cut it off because you're training your mind. But in your day-to-day life, there's no need to cut that off because it's a wholesome thought. You're practicing generosity. But if you're thinking about punching your boss in the face, cut that off, right? Because that's going to cause you difficulties if you end up punching your boss in the face, right? So this is just like a professional athlete. Let's just say I was a pole vaulter. I might go into the gym and I do weight training, cardiovascular training, agility training. My workout looks very different than my sport when I go do pole vaulting. Right? Same thing here. When you're training your mind, it's like exercising your mind. You're building that internal mechanism to be able to cut off and let go of anything that's coming up. So that now in your day-to-day life, you can cut off and let go. You're walking down the street, you see your mind is judging somebody else. You're looking down on them based on the way that they look or the clothing that they wear or the way they talk. You're starting to judge them and compare yourself, and you're looking down on them. Cut that off and let it go. Don't allow your mind to do that unwholesomeness, because that's coming from the mind's ego or the conceit. So the goal of this meditation isn't to eliminate your thought. It's to cut them off and let them go sooner and sooner, so that now you can have control or discipline of your mind. You'd like to build up to a point of 2 or 3 sessions for about 30 minutes. This can sound like a lot to some people, but if you look at your life, I bet there's probably a bunch of unbeneficial things that you're doing that you could probably scale that stuff back. Maybe if you're searching social media 2, 3, 4 hours a day, you could cut that back and give yourself some more time to be able to now meditate. You know, if you're watching endless YouTube video after YouTube video after YouTube video, you could probably cut that back a little bit and give yourself some time to be able to now meditate. So about 2 or 3 times a day, morning and evening, you'd like to be meditating. And if in the middle of the day you can get a meditation in, that'd be wonderful. There's other techniques and other things that you need besides this meditation, but this is a helpful place to get started. If you would like to get started, is to start training your mind with this meditation. Where I suggest students start out is with this first book. It's the first book of our book series, Volume 1. You can actually get this for free. You can download it from our website. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon. If you start with this first book and you attend classes on Sundays, either 9 a.m. or 9 p.m., either here at the temple, or you can join live through our live stream or watch the recording, I gradually walk students through over a 7-month period of this particular book. We're actually going to be restarting this on August 9th, but we're actually doing it right now. We do this all throughout the year, and every 7 months we kind of restart from the beginning. So if you're interested in eliminating these discontent feelings, to be able to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again, you can do this inner work and this inner growth, this inner development, moving to a higher consciousness where your mind functions more and more as an enlightened being, where you get to the point where your mind is completely peaceful, joyful, that your mind doesn't experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you'll notice that your mind's focused. You have concentration. You have clarity and deep memory because you've trained your mind to be able to perform optimally. The Buddha discovered these 10 individual pollutions in the mind. And when you uproot those and get those out of your mind will perform optimally with focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory. But in the unenlightened state, you'll lack those qualities. You'll notice by the time you get to enlightenment, all your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming. They're at ease. Where right now, you probably have certain relationships that you struggle in, that you have difficulties in, because maybe you're being bitter and harsh and hostile, and so is that other person. You guys are being bitter, harsh, and hostile to each other. But by the time you train your mind won't do that anymore. So all your relationships can really blossom. They'll be at ease. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't even experience a bad mood any longer. It's physically impossible for your mind to experience a bad mood. So I'm going to just stop here and see if you guys have any questions on what I've been sharing or anything from your own life, anything you're seeing on your own that you'd like to ask about. Remember, we have the microphones there. We have some up front. And then for those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So are there any questions here online you guys would like to ask? No questions? Okay, let me see. Sometimes people are shy. They don't want to ask a question. And then after class, everybody comes and talks with me. You can do that too if you like. Okay, let me see if we have any questions online. Okay, I don't see any questions. You have a question? Yes, ma'am. Could you use a microphone? Here you go. There's a gray button there. You just press it. They're Buddhist microphones. You need to be patient with them. There you go.
There we go. Hello.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to put it nicely, but from what I understand, is the aim to just feel good feelings? Because if we're trying not to get angry, not to be sad and frustrated, and if we're eliminating that, then if I'm just aiming to feel good feelings, then am I aiming for perfection? And like, isn't that going to be imbalanced? Like the point, what makes us human is that we feel all feelings,
Okay.
So I don't know how to just not. Like if I feel angered, then maybe that tells me that I care about something.
Yeah.
Like if I'm maybe not, I try not to feel frustrated, but like if there's anger or sadness, then I've been thinking that makes me more of a human being.
Okay. So this is a common misunderstanding that the mind has, that it thinks your anger or frustration is telling you that you care about something, but it's not your care that's causing the anger and frustration. It's your craving for permanence, wanting and expecting things to be a certain way. When you get all of that out of the way, you will still have care. Like I care about every single one of you, but no matter what you do, I won't get angry. I won't get frustrated, right? But I still care about you. So people are confused that they think that it's care or love that is causing their anger and frustration. The main thing that the Buddha figured out in the mind, there's multiple things, but one of the main things is he figured out that there's a lack of wisdom, that the mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. It goes around the world with a bunch of beliefs. And with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because somebody convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. And very few people have ever peered into trying to understand what's really causing these feelings or emotions. So I don't think of them as good or bad. That's not a wise thing to think about. But what the Buddha explains, and you can see for yourself, is there's such thing as called conditioned feelings. And then there's what's called unconditioned mental qualities. What a conditioned feeling is that you're going to have a feeling based on some condition. Like, for example, it's sunny outside, so you'll be happy based on the condition that there's sun. Well, the sun's not permanent. So if you base your feeling of happiness on the sun, that means when the sun goes away, your happiness is gone. You can't be happy permanently because your mind's based its feeling on the sun. So everything in the world's constantly changing. So if you base your feelings on external circumstances, that means you can only be happy as long as you're getting that thing. But the world is impermanent. Okay, so as soon as things change, your mind is frustrated. So for example, mom and dad are healthy, your mind's happy. But when they become sick or ill, you're not happy. That's not your care that's causing that. That's your craving for permanence, wanting this permanence, where mom and dad aren't going to be permanently healthy. It's not possible, right? So it's not a matter of good or bad feelings. It's a matter of understanding conditioned feelings are going to cause your mind to be shaken up, unsteady and uncalm. What you would like to be able to get to is unconditioned mental states where your mind is just having happiness and joy without any condition needing to be met. So an enlightened being, when they wake up in the morning, they're already happy, right? They don't need anything in order to produce that happiness because their mind is experiencing unconditioned happiness. And now when they see it's sunny outside, it's like, sweet, I'm going to go hiking. This is going to be a great time. And now you go take a shower and you come out and it's raining. Say, oh, well, it's raining. I guess I'll just stay home and read a book, or I'll go to the mall, or I'll invite my friends over and we can have food and we can have dinner. So there's no condition that's causing the happiness, so you can maintain your happiness, right? You don't need to be upset just because it's raining. You don't need to be upset just because mom and dad are sick, right? We can just maintain our peace, maintain our joy, make some wise decisions to be able to help them get the medical care that they need, fully understanding that because they were born, they're going to experience sickness, aging, and death. Every single one of us. It's impermanence, right? So that's not what makes us human. The fact that in the unenlightened state, you experience anger and sadness and frustration, that's not what makes you human. What makes you human is that you have this particular body and you have this particular mind. And now they've come together, and now we call this a human being. Where you guys might have saw some dogs on the way in, that particular body and that particular mind, we call that a dog. That's an animal. We're not animals. We're human beings. So what makes us a human being is the fact that we have this configuration of a body and this type of mind, and now we can evolve to a higher consciousness, just like a lizard might evolve to a better species. Human beings can evolve to a better species, because when the mind is angry and frustrated and agitated and annoyed, it's functioning like an animal, right? When people get arguing, they'll fight to death pretty much, right? That's no way to live life, because the only reason why those people are angry is because people aren't doing things their way. Where we can understand everybody's doing things differently, everyone looks differently, everyone talks differently, everyone does things differently, and we can just understand that there's a difference, and that's what the world's all about. Is it's constantly changing, it's impermanent, and you can train your mind to not form feelings based on this craving for permanence. And now you can be peaceful and joyful all the time, and there doesn't need to be any condition that's meeting that. So you can get to the point where if your mom died, you could maintain your peace and maintain your joy, maintain your happiness. You're not happy because mom died. You're happy despite the fact that she has died. That we understand that she was born, so therefore she's going to die. We don't have to feel like someone's pulled the carpet out from under our feet. We don't have to feel chopped off at the knees. We don't have to, grieve and be sorrowful. That's what the mind will do when it has craving, desire, attachment. And you're not a bad person if that's what your mind does. It just means that it's attached. It's craving permanence. We can get to the point where even when people close to us die, we understand that this is normal. This is what life is, that we're born, we experience sickness, aging, and death. And now, instead of grieving and being sorrowful, we can experience this very differently. We can have gratitude and appreciation that this person was in our life, rather than feeling like lost and confused. I can't imagine living life without my wife or my husband or my kids. We can understand that this is normal, while making wise decisions, of course, to try to have the best life that we can and the healthiest life that we can, but without having all that grief and sorrow and sadness. But right now, it's really hard for someone to imagine that you could experience the death of your mom and still maintain your happiness, because you haven't experienced the training and your mind doesn't have the understanding of how to do it. So one of the ways that I think about the teachings of the Buddha is it's kind of like an instruction manual to this being who you are. That's essentially what he's teaching you. It's not rules and commandments, but instead, at home, I have a pitcher of water on my desk where I work, and that pitcher probably came with an instruction manual of how to use a pitcher of water, right? So everything nowadays comes with an instruction manual, but nobody gave you an instruction manual of how this being, who you are, how this works. So that's what the Buddha is teaching you, is how does this mind work and how to work with it skillfully to get it to a point where your mind's completely peaceful and joyful. And that's a much, much, much better way to live than living in the unenlightened state. Because in the unenlightened state, you can only be happy when you get what you want. If my mom and dad do this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if my boss does this, if the weather is like this, if my house is like this, and I have this type of car and I have this much money in my bank, then I'll be happy, right? So your happiness is shrinking. This is why some people are old and grumpy. Not everybody is old and grumpy, but some people are, because they have all these conditions that have to be met. And now you're shrinking your ability to be happy. But what the Buddha is doing is he's teaching you how to get rid of all of that and get to the point where you can just be happy all the time. And you don't need all these conditions to be met in order to be happy. Does it make sense? Yeah. It's different than what you currently think about the world. But what you do with these teachings is you cultivate wisdom. That's what it means when we say awakening to enlightenment or to be awake. It means to cultivate wisdom. And as you cultivate wisdom about the world around you, understanding these natural laws and how your mind works, now you can work with it skillfully and make wiser decisions. Because when you don't understand the natural laws and how the world's truly constructed, you'll have difficulties and struggles. That's why when we were kids, we had all kinds of problems with the natural law of gravity. We fell down, we hit our head, we bumped our elbows, we broke our toys, and we cried and cried and cried because we didn't understand the world that we lived in, right? But slowly but surely, we gained wisdom. We awoke to the natural law of gravity. We never believed in it. We can see it for ourselves, that the natural law of gravity is true. And now we start making wiser decisions. We started to tie our shoes tighter. We started walking on the surface of the sidewalk, looking at the surface as we walked. We stopped being so giddy and bouncing around like a kid all the time. And now we can climb ladders, we can ride bicycles, we can get on airplanes and fly all over the world because we fully awoke to the natural law of gravity. We make wise decisions. Well, there's other natural laws that are affecting you, whether you're aware of it or not. And when you lack wisdom of those natural laws, you'll struggle. You'll have difficulties. That's what the stress or the anxiety or the anger or the frustration is that you're living in a world that you don't understand. So when you awaken, meaning cultivate wisdom about natural laws, you will then apply that wisdom, making wiser and wiser decisions, training your mind, getting to a point where now you understand the world that you live in. This is why, like, if you fall down now, you might even start laughing, right? And your friends might start joking you, right? Where when we were a kid, we were so upset when we fell down because we didn't understand the world that we lived in. So just like you let that go and you don't get upset and angry when you fall down, the same thing is true, that you can train your mind to do the same thing with all these other aspects of life. And that makes you more human because you're now evolving to this higher consciousness, evolving to a better and better human being, rather than being disgruntled and angry and frustrated all the time. Yes, please help yourself. There's microphones back there. Usually it just takes one question and then everybody starts asking.
So, okay. So my question is like, when there is a negative feeling and arise, And as you said, cut it out.
Mhm.
But like from my personal experience, it's like as long as you want to cut out something, it keep coming and coming, and it's like feels like cutting out water. It's nothing works. So like if I cut out the anger, I'll get anger more. That's yeah.
So
That-
this is because the underlying cause, the craving, desire, attachment, hasn't been eliminated fully. That you can't just cut it off once and it's going to be completely gone. So for example, if your mom literally died right now, most people are attached to their mom. That's normal, right? Or your dad. If they literally died right now, you're not going to be able to cut that off and let it go in just 1 second, right? Particularly if you haven't been training your mind. But there's an entire path here that you can train your mind through the teachings of the Buddha, right? There's all these different factors that if you haven't been actively training your mind, you're not going to be able to just cut off and let go. If you really want a bag of M&Ms and you just really would like to have a bag of M&Ms or some kind of chocolate bar, and you went into 7-Eleven and they have your chocolate bar, you're happy. But if they don't have your chocolate bar, you're angry and frustrated. That's the craving for permanence. You could probably walk into 7-Eleven and they don't have your chocolate bar and you notice the anger coming up and you cut that off and let it go, right? Because it's a very minimal, very small craving. But on the higher end of the spectrum with something like your mom or your dad or brothers and sisters, if they literally died and you haven't been training your mind, you're not going to be able to cut that off. Right? So what you would like to do is proactively train your mind before these big events like that are going to occur, because they're going to occur. It's only a matter of time before the people around us start dying, and us ourselves, we're going to die, right? So there's various teachings. This is just an image here, but behind this, there's actually words of the Buddha that can teach you how to gradually be training your mind. And you're not going to be able to cut it off and let it go so easily. There's some cravings that took me multiple years to eliminate. The way that I think about it is like a wild bush, that you cut it back and 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 cut it back. And eventually you uproot it. And now it won't produce anger and frustration. So you don't have all the training that you need. You haven't learned all that training to be able to apply it. And then even when you're applying it, it can take multiple months or years to be able to transform your mind with certain cravings. Again, a chocolate bar at 7-Eleven, really easy for you to let that go. But something more deeply held, like relationships, it's going to take you more time to eliminate those. But ultimately, this path 100% works. That's why I do what I do. And I come here and teach you guys, because I know with 100% certainty that this works. And I wouldn't be sharing it with you if I didn't know it works. Yes, sir.
So ever since I learned about Buddhism, I find myself sometimes, for example, like going into a restaurant and looking at the menu and like thinking this meal won't make me happy and this one also won't make me happy, and like I can meditate and train my mind, but I feel like sometimes normal life looks kind of empty. So how do I not fall into this nihilistic viewpoint?
Sure. So whenever you're looking for something to make you happy, that's a conditioned feeling. You're not interested in conditioned happiness, because conditioned happiness will arise, it will change, and then it'll fade away. So if I get really happy and excited, even though I'm not in the job field anymore and I do this, but let's just say I got really happy and excited about a brand new job, right? And it's the perfect company, the perfect office, the perfect title, the perfect salary, the perfect coworkers. And I got so happy and excited about that. Well, that means 3 years later, when the company goes out of business and they fire me or lay me off, I'll be angry and frustrated, right? So you're setting yourself up. You're sabotaging your mind if you allow it to seek happiness externally. So if you get happy because of the food, that means when you're not eating that food, you won't be happy, right? So you would like to get to the point where your mind's willing to let go of the temporary happiness in order to be able to get to the permanent happiness. The temporary happiness is unsatisfying because it's based on a condition, that it has to have some condition to be met in order for there to be happiness. You would like to get to the point where there doesn't need to be any condition met, that you're inwardly happy, you're inwardly peaceful and joyful. So the way you do it with something like food is you need to train your mind to be able to look at food not as something to please the tongue and please the mind, but as something that is to nourish this body. And there's going to be some food that tastes really, really wonderful. And there's going to be other food that doesn't taste so wonderful because of impermanence, right? Not all food tastes the same. So this is what the mind needs to be trained to do, is to be able, to be able to eat this food that tastes very flavorful, but also to be able to eat this food too and maintain its peace and maintain its joy. But the mind doesn't know how to do that in the unenlightened state. It's looking for all the food to be tasting like this. It's trying to get pleasure through the tongue to be able to please the mind. So you need to be able to train your mind that, this fruit, maybe, I don't know if do you guys know durian fruit? You guys know this fruit? I don't know if you've ever had durian fruit before. When I first had durian fruit, I thought it was poop, right? Because it smells like poop, in my opinion. And I've never had poop in my mouth before, but if I did, I think it'd be just like this fruit, because the consistency in your mouth is almost just like poop, right? Some people absolutely adore durian. They think it's the best fruit ever, right? So when I first actually had durian, I was pushing it away. That's that aversion that the mind has. But when you understand the path to enlightenment and what your mind is doing, instead you would like to include that into your day, and you'd like to start eating it every once in a while and training your mind to be comfortable with it. So that now you can be happy if you have, apples and bananas or chocolate cake, but you can also be happy with this durian fruit too, that you're not basing your happiness on this fruit. Same thing, like say you're walking down the street and you get a whiff of odor coming out of a flower shop and you're like, oh, wow, that's a really nice odor. Wow, that smells so amazing. Well, now when you walk a few more steps and you get a whiff of the sewer, you'll be repulsed. You'd be like, oh, that's horrible. That's the worst smell ever, right? Well, all this is impermanence. It's just change, right? So when you smell that flowers, it's like, oh, wow, that's a really wonderful smell. That's really great. And now you walk a few more steps and you smell the sewer. It's like, that's pretty ripe. Let me keep walking, right? But I don't need to be upset or angry just because the sewer smells like that, right? But that's what the mind will do because it's looking for pleasure externally. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll know that that food tastes really, really good, but you can train your mind to not get what's called conditioned pleasant feelings. That you can train your mind that, wow, this tastes really great. This is an enjoyable chocolate cake. But now you understand that that's not permanent. So when you come back next week and the restaurant doesn't have your chocolate cake, that's okay. That's fine. I don't need my chocolate cake. I can be just as happy with the chocolate cake or as without the chocolate cake. That's what you'd like to slowly train your mind to be able to do on any number of topics. I can spend time with my wife and I can enjoy spending time with her, but also when she leaves and goes to the USA for 3 months, I can enjoy that too, right? But if you're attached to your wife or your husband, you can only be happy when they're with you. And then when they're gone, you're feeling miserable. You're feeling like sad and lonely and bored and you're missing this person. That's not your love that's causing that. That's your craving, desire, attachment. You're holding on, basing your feelings on whether this person is with you or not. And you can only be happy when they're with you. And now when they're away from you, you feel sad and miserable. That's no way to live life. That's not enjoyable. So there's this better way of life. So you can get to the point where you can look at the food and you can realize there is all this food on the menu and I can select an item, but this isn't what I'm going to use in order to produce happiness. The happiness needs to come from within, that you can eat this food or that food or this food or that food, and you can still maintain your happiness. So I suspect that you also don't understand the entire path to enlightenment and you haven't fully trained your mind. So that's why your mind can fall into those periods of time where it's kind of swinging back and forth. Where when you have craving, desire, attachment, the mind will chase and chase and chase and chase and chase, and it will get happy when it gets what it wants, but it'll get sad and frustrated when it don't get what it wants. But then what'll happen is you're starting to pull away from craving. The mind will tend to swing to the other side where it'll feel dull and lethargic and lazy. But that's not what the Buddha is teaching you. These are the two extremes. He's teaching you to come to the middle where you can gradually pursue your goals, objectives, or interests through wise decision making. And that's something your mind needs to be fine-tuned to be able to do. And it's this Eightfold Path that's going to help you to do it. Mm-hmm. Sure. I'm not sure who's first or second. So you guys can go whenever you like. And there's a bunch of mics over there too you guys can use.
So I'm curious to know, so in Buddha's teaching, what is the life purpose? Is it like the ultimate mental status of unconditioned feelings? And the follow-up question would be, so whatever it is, how does it guide people to live their life, like in every day, like what they do, what they choose to pursue, etc.?
Yeah. So this is a common question people oftentimes ask, like, what's the purpose of life, right? So in my opinion, this comes from the mind's ego, that the mind thinks that there's got to be some purpose here. Like, I'm an important person. There's got to be some kind of purpose. And the mind's trying to grab onto a purpose. And if you grab onto a purpose, this actually kind of locks you in. And I don't suggest people do this. Like, for example, when I first started my career, I was in IT. I was in computers. And I did that for multiple years doing computer work. If I grabbed onto that and I thought that that was my purpose in life, well, then when I was interested in changing to open my own business or ultimately to share the teachings of the Buddha, I wouldn't have been willing to change because I would have been holding on and thinking this is my purpose. So the mind's usually looking outside of itself for some type of purpose. It wants some type of purpose so it can grab onto this. And that's really unwise because your life's going to be constantly changing as you go through life. So I tell people that there is no purpose to life. But people usually don't like that answer. You know, they're like, I want a purpose. Just give me a purpose. Okay, if you would like a purpose for life, here's your purpose. Get to enlightenment. Because then when you get to enlightenment, your mind will be completely peaceful and joyful, and you'll realize that there really is truly no purpose to life. But you'll be completely happy and completely joyful. It's not like there's no purpose to life, like it's all mundane and it's boring. That's not what the path to enlightenment is. Oftentimes when people see these pictures of the Buddha, you know, I have a bunch of pictures like this right here, right? People oftentimes see the Buddha in this solemn position meditating, and they think, oh, enlightened beings just sit around and meditate all day. And they're so quiet and so solemn and so serious. This isn't true. Enlightened beings are having lots of fun, way more fun than unenlightened beings, because unenlightened beings can only have fun when things are going their way, when they're getting what they want. Enlightened beings, they can have fun no matter what's happening in their day-to-day life. So by cultivating wisdom and training your mind, if you would like some kind of purpose, make that your purpose, to cultivate wisdom, to grow and learn and develop and become a better and better person, doing this inner work, this inner growth, this inner development, becoming a better and better human being. If you'd like some kind of purpose, I would say do that. But truly, there is really no purpose here other than to cultivate wisdom and live a really wonderful life. And as you get to the point where you cultivate wisdom, you get to the point where your mind is completely peaceful and joyful, experiencing all those benefits that I mentioned and even more, where you have such fulfilling and satisfying relationships, where in the unenlightened state, you'll have broken relationship after broken relationship after broken relationship, and it'll feel really frustrating and really daunting and very miserable sometimes in the unenlightened state. But by the time you get to enlightenment, that's not the case. Your mind's going to be peaceful and joyful all the time. So make that your purpose if you're looking for some kind of purpose, is to get to enlightenment. And if you'd like a more detailed answer, because it's so common, in this book, in the frequently asked questions section, I go through the detail and I explain this in more detail. Mm-hmm. More questions? Yeah, please help yourself.
So, okay. I think the discussion is really interesting, and I think all the purpose is about the pursuit of peace and joy in my life, but it's the pursuit of not craving permanent is also a kind of craving for permanent.
So you can pursue something without it being a craving, desire, attachment. It's not the object that determines whether something is a craving, desire, attachment. So let me give you some examples to help you see this. Let's just say I was in my car and I was going hiking and I have a liter of water in the car, right? And now I get to the front of the trailhead and I get out of the car without my water. And I'm walking down the trail, 30 minutes down the trail, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot my water. My water. And I run back to my car, twist my ankle on the way, sling open the door. Water, 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 water. Right? But there could be a second person out on the trail who's like, I forgot my water. I'm going to be out here for about 6 or 8 hours. I should probably go back and get my water. And now they calmly turn around and they walk back to their car and they get their water. So the object is the same. The difference is that the person who was first, they had a craving in their mind. They were craving permanence. And when they realized they didn't have their water, their mind freaked out. And they started making all kinds of unwise decisions to hurriedly go back to their car. The second person, object was the same. It was the water, but their mind was completely calm and they were able to go back to their car and get their water, right? So just the fact that you're interested in getting to enlightenment doesn't mean you're craving it. Someone can chase it, right? And if you're chasing it, you won't get to it. But you could also be all the way on the other side where you could care less. And you're like, you know what? I'm angry. I'm frustrated. That's the human condition. That's how we're born. So what? I'm going to be angry and frustrated people, and I'm going to treat them however I want to treat them, and I don't care. Those are two extremes, chasing after enlightenment, chasing after this peacefulness, or all the way on the other side where you could care less. What you would like to do is come to the middle where you pursue this path as a goal, as an objective, or as an interest. But right now, if you have a goal and you accomplish it and you're happy and you don't accomplish it and you're angry and frustrated, that's not a goal. That's a craving, desire, attachment masquerading as a goal. A true goal is something that you can work towards and you can maintain your happiness and joy whether you accomplish it or not. So if I'm 80% of the way towards a goal, I can look at it and say, you know what? I'm not at the goal yet. And I can maintain my happiness. And I can say, I can give myself more time. That'll help me to be able to accomplish this goal. Or I could add more resources to be able to help me accomplish this goal. Or you know what? 80% is fine. I can just be fine with the 80%. I don't need to go any further. And now you can maintain your happiness and your joy. That's a true goal. So you would like to work towards enlightenment as a goal, as an objective that you're gradually working towards through wise decision making, not chasing it, but also not on the other side where you could care less about this being who you are. That wouldn't be very loving and kind and compassionate to yourself, just to continue to walk around with anger and frustration. So by coming to the middle and gradually pursuing it through coming to the temple, learning with a teacher, reading books, doing meditation, this is gradually working towards it, but without the longing, yearning, and the chasing it. So you can pursue everything in life, whether it's a career, a family life, whatever it is, you can do that without craving, desire, attachment. But the mind needs to learn how to do it. And that's what this Eightfold Path helps you to be able to do. Mm-hmm. Yes. Good morning. Yeah, we have plenty of mics. Just takes a second to engage.
Yes.
There you go.
Hello?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Hi, good morning. I appreciate being here. It's lovely to be with everyone, and I'm really enjoying your lecture. I'm having some conflict in terms of going through many, many traumas in my life and griefs from a very young child until most recently, and getting through them through what some people would deem as going through the fire to get to the other side, through sufferings and some very uncomfortable feelings that come up when we have change and we're attached to these emotions or experiences. I feel as though for me, and I'd like to hear more about how you feel or what you think, is that they've created a deeper level of empathy and understanding, non-judgmental positions in my life. It's given me, because of those lived experiences, I feel like I have a more compassion because I've gone through so many difficult experiences in my life. So I'm having a little conflict in hearing that just to let go and train your mind to do that without going through a level of time to process how individuals are impacted through traumas, which I feel like we'll all experience in life. So can you say a little bit more about that?
Sure.
Thank you.
So you can't get to enlightenment without going through some painful feelings and some hardships. You're going to experience that. That's going to happen. Even my son, who just walked in, he's 13, almost 14. I've been teaching him since he was 6 years old. And he's living a very different life than what I lived when I grew up, because his mind is fairly well trained and he's very peaceful and very joyful. But even he had some challenges because he was doing it when he was very young, and he had certain challenges that he had to work through. So you're going to work through some hardships and some challenges. But the younger that you learn these teachings, the better off, because your mind isn't actually as polluted as it is once we get older. It doesn't mean that there's ever a bad time to be able to learn and practice these teachings, but once we get older, we've taken on a lot more conditioning in our mind, so it's going to be a lot more painful. So all of those experiences that you've had, sure, they've helped you to cultivate a certain amount of wisdom to be able to now be the person who you are. But you can actually proactively cultivate this wisdom where you don't have to experience the struggles and difficulties. An individual will experience struggles and difficulties. If you're born, there's going to be sickness, aging, death, sorrow, grief, pain, displeasure, and despair. It's going to happen, but you can minimize that and then ultimately completely eliminate it by the time you get to enlightenment. So these experiences that we all have in life, they are there, they're teaching us, right? But we need to choose to be able to learn and cultivate the wisdom, because if we don't cultivate the wisdom in that particular situation, that situation is going to repeat over and over and over again because we're making the same decisions. So what people are calling trauma, what that is that's a situation that happened in the past where your mind was experiencing painful feelings, and now the mind continues to hold on to that, and now it experiences painful feelings in the present moment based on something that happened in the past. And people call this trauma, and they think that they'll never get over it, but this isn't actually true. Even if someone's experienced sexual abuse or physical abuse or any kind of other things like this, no matter what you've experienced in the past, you can train your mind to let that go and understand that that doesn't define who you are as a person, and you don't need to form feelings and emotions based on what happened in the past. So it's not as easy as just let it go. It's not that. It's not cavalier, right? There's some real work, some real inner work that you need to be able to do. And that's why a teacher is so important in an individual's journey to enlightenment. You wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment without a teacher or a guide. You're the one who's doing the work, but a teacher is like a tour guide pointing out for you the things that you need to learn and understand and providing the resources to help you do that. But you're going to need to do that work. And for people that are older, they've actually been involved in some of that work. And even younger people, if you've had a breakup or you've had someone close to you die, you've felt that struggle. But this idea of something being a trauma that the mind is going to hold on to, and now you can never overcome that trauma, that is not true. It's not permanent. And whatever we've experienced in the past, and in that situation, we might have experienced very painful feelings, but we can actually train our mind to no longer do that. So that's why one of the ways I think about the teachings of the Buddha is to heal from what hurt you, so that you never need to hurt ever again. But what's hurting you is not the outside world, because that's what people tend to do, is they try to fix other people. They try to fix the outside world, but it's not actually fixing the real root of the problem, which is inside the mind. So when you understand the root problem is inside the mind, now you'll focus your attention on that and you can get to a true solution. Mm-hmm. You guys looking at something? Yeah, please. There was a big cockroach in here the other day. I thought maybe that's what it was.
Okay. From what we just discussed, I think we are supposed to balance our emotion, and we may, let the negative emotion last, but maybe we may sacrifice our extreme positive feelings. Mm-hmm. Do we?
It's not true. So it's very challenging for the unenlightened mind to understand what enlightenment is until you're experiencing it. It's kind of like if you've never tasted chocolate ice cream before, and I sat here and described chocolate ice cream to you, you would understand a little bit more about what chocolate ice cream tastes like after our conversation, but you're not going to fully understand it until you taste it. Right? So I can explain to you what enlightenment is and what you will experience, but you're not going to fully understand it. So oftentimes when I talk about getting to peace and joy and eliminating these highs and lows, people think that you're just kind of mute and kind of like numb. This isn't actually true. Your mind is always bright and cheerful and glad and uplifted. It doesn't matter what's going on in your life. You can maintain that cheerfulness, that gladness, that uplifted, that radiant mind. And it's just always in that state. You wake up peaceful and joyful and happy. All day long, you're joyful and happy. And then you go to sleep and you're still joyful and you're happy. And it's just always there. So here's one of the ways to think of it. If you have the sun and you have the clouds in front of the sun is there, but you can't experience the rays of the sun because the clouds are in the front. But when the clouds get pulled away, the rays of the sun can shine through. And it's like, that feels really nice. You have the rays of the sun on the body, right? Well, one of the ways to say it is that the mind will attain enlightenment. But another way to say it is that the mind's already enlightened. The natural state of the mind is actually enlightened, but you can't experience it because you have these pollutions that are in the way, hindering you from experiencing it. When you get rid of these pollutions out of the mind, the qualities of that natural state of the mind can actually shine through. That's the rays of the sun shining through. The only difference in this analogy is the clouds are going to eventually come back and block the sun. But by the time you get to enlightenment, those pollutions that you got out of your mind, they will never come back into your mind ever again. So the natural state of the mind is unconditioned, where there's no conditions, there's no pollutions in the mind. The state of the mind when we come into the world is that it has these pollutions that are hindering you from being able to experience the natural qualities of this enlightened mind. So by getting rid of these pollutions, your mind will more and more brighten up, where it'll be cheerful and glad and uplifted and radiant at all times. So you're no longer experiencing the highs and the lows. You're only experiencing the peace and the joy, where the mind's bright and cheerful and uplifted. But it's hard for the mind to think about that because that's what you're used to, is these highs and lows. And if your mind's not there, you're just kind of like mundane. But that's not what the enlightened mind is experiencing. The enlightened mind is beyond all of that, where it's no longer going up and down and up and down. It's not experiencing this mundane state or anything like that. It's just always bright and cheerful and glad and uplifted no matter what you're doing. And it's hard for someone to imagine that that's possible, but that's what your mind has the capability to do. And that's why I'm here, to be able to help you guys. And I provide you all the guidance, all the resources, the books, the audiobooks, the videos, the podcasts, even personal guidance. People schedule appointments with me and I sit down and talk with them and help them to be able to understand how to gradually train their mind. And I do it all at no cost, because I know this is the very best thing that could ever happen for your life. And I would like to see that happen for each individual person. Yep. Yes, please. Could you get a mic? Would you mind? The people online will be able to hear you if you have a microphone.
Hello.
Mhm.
Do you think that this would help with anxiety, sleeping better? And you talk about highs and lows. Does it help with quitting coffee or other things? But mainly my question is about sleep and anxiety from working too much, sitting at a desk all day, looking at screens, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I used to take a whole handful of medicine before I would go to sleep. I wasn't able to sleep without that. Now I don't take any medicine whatsoever. It's been many years since I've ever needed any of that stuff. You'll get rid of all your anxiety. You'll get rid of all your stress. You'll get rid of difficulty sleeping, because what your mind's doing when you're having difficulty sleeping is it's usually sitting there ruminating where it can't let go. Right? It's just sitting there thinking about your day or your next day or next week or next year or something in the past. The mind's just sitting there ruminating and it can't let go. right? So that's what you're doing, is you're training your mind to be able to let go. So now I fall asleep and sleep like a baby every single night. I have a good night's sleep every single night. I never wake up in a bad mood. I never experience any of that stuff. So if it works for me, it'll work for you as well. It's just going to take consistent training. And oftentimes the mind's complacent. The mind, the thing that is that the mind craves permanence. It doesn't like change. But the very first thing that you learn on the path to enlightenment is you need to change. The way you're living your life right now isn't working, right? So you need to change. And the mind's like, no, I'm scared of that change. I don't want to change. It really wants to stay in this darkness that it's in. So there's the body and there's the mind, and the combination of these two things we call the person. The person needs to look at the mind and say, hey, buddy, you need to change. And your mind's like, no, I don't want to change. I want to be a wild animal. And you're like, I understand, but you need to do some work. Come on, let's get in here and do some work, right? So now you start reading the books, you start coming to classes, you start getting some personal guidance, you start meditating and training your mind, and slowly but surely, you start seeing the improvement. It's kind of like when we were a child. Our parents taught us to take a shower and take a bath, and we were like, no, I don't want to take a bath. I want to play. And then your parents like, come on, take a bath. And like, no, I want to play. Well, eventually, by the time we were like 10, 12, 14 years old, we're like, oh, I kind of like taking a bath. This feels nice, right? And now as an adult, you can't imagine not taking a shower, right? But as a child, that's not the way our mind thought, right? So it's the same thing with this, is that the mind oftentimes doesn't want to do this work. It's holding on to this darkness. So you've got to kind of kick yourself in the butt and say, come on, let's do this. Let's get to this peace and joy. So absolutely, it'll help with all those things. You just got to be observant of your mind, because it will tend to be complacent. It will tend to try to find errors where you won't find any errors in the teachings of the Buddha. His teachings are very clear, very concise, very precise. It explains to you exactly how to get to this enlightened mental state. But the mind will sit there and constantly trying to poke holes to try to stay in its complacency, because it isn't willing to do this work to really move forward and actually experience this improvement. But if everybody could taste enlightenment just for a second, just for 1 second or a minute, and then now your mind was back in the unenlightened state, you would let nothing stand in your way of getting to that enlightened mental state. Right? It's kind of like when we tasted ice cream the first time, or chocolate. Boy, we didn't want anything to stand in our way of getting back to that chocolate and ice cream. It's the same thing with this. So unfortunately, I can't do that for you. I can't give you the taste of enlightenment for you to now understand it and be able to make your way to it. But if you can build your confidence and you can have enough love and kindness for yourself that you decide, hey, I'm done with the broken relationships. I'm done with the argument. I'm done with the sleepless nights. I'm done with the anxiety and the stress. Let me live this better way of life and let me figure this out. And now there's someone here that's willing to help you to do that. You're welcome. All right. I think that might be all the questions, huh? Okay. So what I'm going to do to end is just end by thanking all of you guys. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and understand the teachings of the Buddha. If you guys would like to learn more, there's plenty of opportunities for you guys to do that. You can consult our bulletin board over here. There's all kinds of options for you there. You can also look at our website. You can also come and talk to me and I can get you plugged in. As I mentioned, I suggest for everyone to start with this first book, which you can get from our website. You can download it for free. You can take it and go print it yourself. If you like printed versions, you can just reimburse us here and we'll give you the book. You can pick one up yourself, or you can order it on Amazon. That's the best place to get started. And then each Sunday and Wednesday, you can learn in these classes. And then I teach courses and retreats throughout the month. You can see it on our schedule over there, or you can see it on our website as well. So whatever you choose to do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Take care and be well. Sawadee ka. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.